No matter what background, childhood, ethnicity, or country we come from, we can all relate to one thing, and that one thing is nature. Whether you're from Mauna Kea, Hawaii, which is one of the world's top stargazing locations, and you can see beautiful stars at night and even during the day, or you're from a city that has a lot of pollution and you only see one star at night coming home from work, we've all had that moment where you just stand there in awe at the beauty that a star provides. When you look up at those twinkling lights, you would never realize the chemical processes that are happening before you. My name is Bennion, and personally I've always been fascinated about the galaxy, our universe, and what happens there and what it is composed of. Why is learning about the galaxy or stars important? That's a very good question. Recently, in April of 2017, Donald Trump signed an executive order from the National Space Foundation in order that this order would provide money that would go to research, and that research provides us on Earth things like learning about natural disasters and how we can better prepare for them or take care before they happen. Also with minerals that we can get from foreign areas in the space to help us. So outer space is very important. Learning about stars in our atmosphere is very important. Even if there's one thing I want you guys to learn today, you could even share with your family or your kids while you're looking up at the stars, just a little something extra. Today is my goal. My goal is that each of you will understand the process of how a star dies through learning about the galaxy that surrounds us. Nearly all stars belong to enormous groups called galaxies. There are billions of galaxies in the universe, but we belong to the Milky Way galaxy, just like the candy bar. There are at least 100 billion stars in the Milky Way. So we will first look at how a star is born to understand later on how a star dies. Stars are born in big clouds of dust and gas, which is known as a nebula. So the birth location of a star is called a nebula. It's a big cloud of dust and gas. Due to gravity, these clouds shrink and become clumps. With time, nuclear reactions begin because each clump is super hot and dense. Now, once the temperature reaches 10 million degrees Celsius, each clump becomes a star. Now, we will look at the life cycle of a star. Our Universe for Kids states, the type and mass of a star will determine how long the star will live before the star goes supernova. Supernova is the death of a star. So the type and mass of a star will determine how long a star lives before it dies. There are many different types of stars, and we won't get into all of that today, but we will get into how each individual star dies. When hydrogen gas runs out within the star, it causes the star to collapse at its core, then relying on helium gas and other elements in its surroundings. So I'd like to compare the life of a star to the life of a human, and the death of a star to the death of a human. Now, the day we are born as humans is the day we begin to die, in essence. Our body goes through changes, it evolves, and it's eventually going to die. And the same goes for a star. When a star is first born in that nebula, a cloud of dust and gas, it first relies on hydrogen gas for a long time. And then when the hydrogen gas runs out, it then relies on helium gas and other elements it scrambles for after there's no longer hydrogen in its surroundings. And us as humans have to rely on different things throughout our lives to survive: food, water. A star has to rely on hydrogen and helium and other elements, such as we have to rely on certain things. Over hundreds, thousands, or even billions of years, the stars grow larger and larger until burning out all energy and leaving just the core. At this time, the star is still alive and very, very hot. After millions of years after that, the star will begin to cool down. The star at this time can either die in a big explosion, or it can go cold and stop to burn any energy. So now that we have learned about the life of a star, we will look at the death of a star and what remains after a star dies. National Geographic states, as stars reach the end of their lives, most will inflate, lose mass, and then cool down to form white dwarfs. So as stars cool down and get into that supernova state of death, most stars become white dwarfs, and white dwarfs are just smaller stars. So as stars die, they form other stars. It's very unique. These white dwarfs are formed from smaller to medium-sized stars that are close to the size of our sun. And I want to put a quick example. If this is the size, this sphere is the size of the sun, this right here in my hand, a little caramel, represents the size of our Earth. And perhaps this could even be smaller because 100 million Earths could fit into a sun. Now, a sun is the size of a medium-sized star. So there are stars actually out there that are 10 to 20 times the size of our sun, which a million Earths could fit into a sun. So stars are very big, and that just kind of puts that image out there for you. Now, white dwarfs are the first thing that remains after a star dies. Another thing that can be left is a neutron star, which a neutron star is 1.4 times the size of the sun. So a neutron star is just a bigger star that remains after a star dies. Or the last thing that can remain after a star dies, or in other words, reaches supernova, is a black hole. So a black hole forms from the remnants of a supernova, or the death of a star. This happens when the core collapses into an infinitely small point. Now, as I get to the end of this speech, this small presentation, I would like each of you to think of these 6 points that you can leave with today. First, stars are born in big clouds of dust and gas. Second, the type and mass determines how long a star lives. Third, stars first rely on hydrogen gas, and when that runs out, they depend on helium gas and other elements. Fourth, they grow larger until burning out all energy and leaving just the core. Fifth, after millions of years, the star finally cools down. 6. Stars can die in a big explosion, or it goes cold and stops to burn energy, leaving remains of either a white dwarf, a neutron star, or a black hole. So, all in all, the death of stars creates the birth of new stars, and is an ongoing process in our galaxy. So, the death of stars helps new stars reform. Last quote I have for you guys. The European Space Agency said, "For a week or so, the supernova outshines the other stars in the galaxy." Again, for a week or so, the death of a star outshines the other stars in the galaxy. So that's very unique, that as stars die, they outshine all the other stars in the galaxy for that moment. And then that quickly fades and other stars are born and created from it. Thank you very much.